Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Edwina. How y'all doing out there, Facebook family? And if you're like me, I am an early bird and I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. And uh, so, if you are watching, I want you to create a watch party so that individuals who may need information on this free from recovery emerge empowered in order to give hope, help others prosper equally using the 12 recovery principles. If you think they need this information, please create a watch party so that they can view it now and or later. So I want to definitely start off by thanking my God for giving me life today. And obviously, if you're watching, he gave you life today too. And so for that, if that only, we need to be grateful. So, as you can see, I'm in my kitchen now. And yesterday's first presentation was up in my bedroom. But I have two little ones up there sleeping. So guess what? Grandma had to move downstairs. And that's what people would think is common sense, but the 12 recovery principles help me to use the serenity prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, rather than me forcing myself for my self-centeredness to be in my bedroom while they are asleep, there's a chance they might wake up and interrupt this presentation, right? So what do? What can you change? What can I change? Well, I changed the location. So I'm down here in my kitchen and I'm having my coffee here. And every morning I have coffee with Billy Dandridge. Him and Francine and Aviance and Bruce, they are my favorite family. Yes, but he passed some years ago. And I have coffee with him every morning. And so I want you to get your coffee before we start this presentation and get comfortable. I want you to also get a pencil. No, get a pen and an erase. No, a pen and a tablet. Because yesterday presentation we talked about keeping a journal. So I want you to be able to take some notes if you need to. So get a pen and a pad or a piece of paper before we start the second day presentation. So for those who are just joining me and was not privy to attend yesterday, let me give you an overview. And I'll be using the terms I and we because we are in this together. And each of us have to be challenged to do what we can do personally that will help the collective body. Okay. So many of you know or may not know, I have been in recovery from substance abuse, alcoholism, and all the associated lifestyles that go with them for the past 30 years. Yes, to God be the glory. But in these 30 years, I have been blessed to be able to attend a 12-step program called Alcoholics Anonymous. So I am not a representative of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I have been a member for the last 30 years. And at 7:30 this morning, I will be going to my regular AA meeting that I have been going to for the past 30 years. But within those 30 years and recovering from that lifestyle of addiction and alcoholism and associated behaviors, there were a lot of internal issues that I had to deal with so that I won't be tempted or compelled to pick up a drink or drug to numb or escape the feelings, right? And so in the 12-step program, they have 12-step principles, spiritual principles that we as recovering alcoholics, drug addicts, overeaters, sex addicts, love addicts, because they all use the same 12 recovery principles that were formulated by Alcoholics Anonymous back in 1935. And so as a result of being presented with this information over the years, with continued practice, with continued honesty, with continued open-mindedness, with continued willingness, I've learned, as thousands and probably millions of others who are in recovery, how to go inside and deal with the issues using these 12 recovery principles to help us not go back to where we were delivered from. To not go back to drinking and drugging and all of those associated behaviors. So these 12 recovery principles helped me. And it's helping me also during this time of crisis. And this is not the first time I've been through crisis, but this is the first time that I've experienced a crisis such as this. And you wonder, well, why am I smiling? Yes, because even in the midst of this crisis, there's hope. Even in the midst of this crisis, I can find, in the midst of this crisis, I can wake up smiling today. Yes. Why? Because the 12 recovery principles have helped me to utilize the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity to change, to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Has helped me to put things in this right perspective, and if needed, adjust my attitude. So AA can stand for attitude adjustment. And so as life on life terms show up, I have, as millions of others, made the choice to use one of the 12 recovery principles, if not all, to help us through any and all crises, challenges, issues, even joys, celebrations, so that we don't pick up that drink or drug again. Okay? So I've done a lot of work inside. And in our program, it states that all human beings are ill to some extent. All of us are ill to some extent. So they also say that all humans can use a 12-step program or use the information that's in that program. And as I shared yesterday, Dr. See if I can get his name right, Scott T. Allison wrote in Psychology Today, and the caption read how using the wisdom of a 12-step program can help us in the month of April, right, during this crisis. And so that was enough to motivate me to begin this 30-day presentation of the 12 recovery principles. If they helped me and are helping me during this crisis, guess what? I want to share how they can help you too. So that's why we're here, and this is what this presentation is going to be about. It's from April the 1st, yesterday, through April the 30th, and you're going to get some information, you're going to get some encouragement, you're going to get some hope, you're going to be given some tools to use, only if you choose to use them, okay? And so I thank Dr. Allison for helping me break through that challenge and presenting this information to you during this time of crisis, okay? So my motto is, usually what happens in a 12-step program, I go to my meetings, and there's open meetings and closed meetings. And so this morning at 7:30, if you're still available, I will tune you into an actual 12-step AA meeting that's open to the public, okay? But when I do my presentations on how this program has helped me, because the challenge is to stay sober and utilize the 12 recovery principles, but also to help others. And so when I present to you, I am coming outside of the 12-step program, but giving you 12-step program information that has helped me because it's free. It was freely given to me, and I want to freely give it to you. And that's why the word free is my motto, free and hope, because the acronym for FREE, F.R.E.E, is from recovery, emerge empowered. From recovery, emerge empowered. So that means when we learn and utilize these 12 recovery principles, and we implement them in our lives and begin to practice them, we are going to emerge empowered. Yes, we are going to emerge empowered. Okay? And the reason why this free presentation is free to you, because I want to give you hope, like hope was given to me. And hope was another motto that I use, that the acronym stands for help others prosper equally. Help others prosper equally. That's the hope. We're all human beings. We all need help. And we're all here and should be here to help one another and to encourage one another and to give each other hope. So that's my mottos that I use and will be using throughout the presentation. Now, yesterday, I usually try to do my PowerPoint. And when I give my presentations, I use PowerPoint. But for whatever reason, it's not working. But thank God for hard copies. Thank God for the old-fashioned way of doing things. So you can't always depend on technology. You have to rely on things that work. So actual documentation do work. And I'm so glad that I have the backup that I need of the presentation that I was going to use with PowerPoint. So before I continue, if you don't know me, and if you do know me, you know that I don't normally look like this. Why? Because I am and have been known to be transparent. Not just transparent, but totally transparent. To thy own self be true. And that's what I want to start off with. To thy own self be true. And so with that being said, this is a wig. I don't have any makeup on. I don't have any fingernails. I mean, paste on or whatever. And so if I want to expect you to be totally transparent, guess what? I need to set the example. So here goes. Hi, y'all. Woo! There go the wig. So this is who I am. Yes, I'm 64 years old, got a head full of gray hair, but through the 12 recovery principles, I have a lot of wisdom. So I want to be transparent to you. I want to be able to connect with you spiritually. I want to be able to connect with you so that I can share with you and hopefully feel from you the empathy and the compassion and the understanding that all of us need when we have something inside of us that we need to get out. So now that my transparency a little pop, this is how I normally wear my hair. Isn't that great, beautiful? Yes, I like it too. I am comfortable in my own skin. I am blessed to be grateful to accept what my God has given me. So this is a sign of wisdom. And through the 12 recovery principles, it looks like I have a lot, right? I still got a ways to go because I'm always, always ready to be humbled and remain a student. So that's the first thing. To thy own self be true. So we talked about yesterday, I gave an overview of what we're going to be doing, and I gave you an overview of my qualifications, and real quickly I am a doctoral candidate in biblical studies, and this is not a religious presentation, not at all, but I am getting my doctorate degree in biblical studies just to learn more about the God who I did not know that delivered me from underneath a parked car 30 years ago. So that's why I'm getting my doctorate degree in biblical studies, because I want to learn more about that power that did what no human being could do. So, but I'm also a presenter, a facilitator, a trainer, an author, a writer, and a recovery coach, and even a model and an actress. Why? Because the 12 recovery principles help me walk through the fear to obtain my God-given goals and gifts and destiny. So, in my 30 years, I've been able to accomplish those things in the midst of crisis. And even in the midst of this crisis, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what God has allowed me to do, to share with you in the midst of this. Hope. Hope that no matter what we're going through, there's always hope. Yes, it is. But we need individuals to help present that hope, to give that hope, to be a demonstration of that hope. And I thank God that He has prepared me to sit before you the next 30 days to give you hope and to encourage you to be free from recovery, emerge empowered. Because as I shared yesterday, I was supposed to be going around the country sharing these 12 recovery principles to the world, to let them know that if you are recovering from cancer, substance abuse, mental illness, domestic violence, rape, molestation, homelessness, all of those things that happen and can happen to us, but how do we get the freedom from them? How do we be freed from them? How do we accept what we can change, but have the courage to change the things we can? And it's through these 12 recovery principles that the Spirit gave me a couple of years ago to present the 12 recovery principles to the world. So I was scheduled to go all around the country, 2020 free tour, but guess what? I'm in my kitchen, and that's okay, because I probably have a bigger audience opposed to a contained audience around the country in different venues. So I'm glad that this worked out, because I'm still able to do my assignment. And so that's what this free tour thing was about, okay? And we also talked about, what the presentation is, from recovery, emerge empowered, so that we can give people hope, help others recover, help others prosper equally, okay? Many of you through the years know that I wrote articles for the News Journal on my 12 recovery principle experience. So, you'll see that I have been featured in the News Journal, the Scoop magazine, the Philadelphia Tribune, the RHD newspaper, I forget what it's called, only one, talking about the experiences that I've had throughout the years, and they all were based on the 12 recovery principles. So coming from that lifestyle of 14 years to being in recovery and practicing these 12 recovery principles in my life, I've been able to utilize what the enemy meant for bad that God meant for good. So again, this is not a religious program. This is, basically my experience, my strength, and my hope to share with you what the recovery principles have done for me. Also, I am a part of a religious church. I belong to Canaan Baptist Church, where my pastor, Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock, and Dr. Debbie Bullock, and the associated pastors, but I have a family church now. But guess what? I've only been a part of them for 15 years, but I've been in recovery for 30 years. People say, you wonder why? Because I didn't have an understanding of a loving and caring God. I didn't have an understanding of the difference between religious and spirituality. So I had issues with the religion part of life and how I was confused and the many and variations of all that stuff when we all serve the same God, creator if you like. Even if you don't believe, that's fine. It's okay. If you don't believe, hold your breath for 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and see what power allows you to breathe again. Anyway, so that's that. So what I want to do now is I gave an overview of what the 12 recovery principles are. And this morning, I want to give a little more information that we're going to be discussing, that I'm going to be sharing with you to help ignite some mind-provoking thoughts, to give you something to think about, to ponder during the day. And so I started off by saying, to thy own self be true. And this is powerful. To thy own self be true. I am sure I didn't hear this once. I probably heard it several times, but I heard it from Dr. Alvin Turner. Many of you know he's an extraordinary person. And he practiced in the state of Delaware. I believe he's in New York now. But I had him at one of my conferences to help Sammy, substance abuse, mental illness, 7-year-old Sammy, recover from his disease as well as his family. And he said, Edwina, and I never forget it, and I've also included it in my presentation, and I want you to internalize it too. He say most oftentimes people, even ourselves, say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Why can't I deal with this? Why can't you deal with that? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Why am I going through this? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? He said, that's the wrong question to ask. That's the wrong question to ask. The question should be, what happened to you? What happened to me? Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you to generate that thought? What happened to you to conduct that behavior? What happened to you to develop that attitude? What happened? Help me to understand what happened to you. So once we find out what happened to you, what happened to me, then we have a better understanding of why we act a certain way, why we think a certain way, why we do certain things, why we are stubborn, why we are jealous, why we are insecure, why we are ambitious, and all of those things. What happened to you? Because the reality of it is, we may make choices and put ourselves in situations, but the reality is, some of them we can't get out ourselves. And we need help to do that. And so Dr. Turner helped me complement the 12 recovery principles, because that's what we talk about too. And that's what the STEP process does. That's what the recovery principle does, is it helps us to review, to go back, to unravel that onion. Yes. to what happened to us, to get to the core of our human existence and find out how over the years, those layers of things, people, places, took away the core of that onion. And so what the 12 recovery principles do is help us to unravel those layers. Yes, and you know how many layers are on the onion? Oh my gosh, it's a lot of layers. But that's what we are. So we need to find out what happened. And the only way we can do that is to unravel, with help, that onion. And that's what the 12 recovery principles are going to do for you, have done for me, and will continue to do for me and for you. So, to their own self be true. So let's talk about a little more in depth the 12 recovery principles. Yesterday, I just more or less stated them, read them, gave, a short example. But today, I want to get a little more in depth as to what the 12 recovery principles are and provide some questions to you that you can ponder and that you can answer before we go into the actual detailed analysis of that particular recovery principle, okay? And so that's why I wanted you to start keeping a journal. And I told y'all about my journal. I kept a journal for 4 years in my recovery. And tomorrow I'll present it to you. I don't see it right now, but I do have it. But it's a journal that I kept of the thoughts, the fears, the behaviors, the attitudes, the first 4 years in recovery. And that journal has become my reference book. So I want you to start keeping a journal of these presentations that I'm doing in information, okay? And so as I go through the 12 recovery principles, I'm going to be asking you some questions so that you don't have to answer them right now. Thank you, Billy. That you don't have to answer them right now, but that you can think about. Because all of these 12 recovery principles can help you transform positively, constructively, yes, productively, yes, spiritually, so that you can learn like we have learned in recovery, that no matter what goes on in life, no matter what the situation is, whether it's good or bad, up or down, that we can maintain our peace, we can maintain our joy, we can maintain our serenity in the midst of the storm. Okay? So, the first recovery principle is stated that we have to do this particular principle 100%. 100%. Because without accepting, understanding, internalizing the first recovery principle, there's no need to go on. Yes. But it's a start. It's a start. But it's the first recovery principle that identifies that issue, that circumstance, that situation. It helps to identify what it is that has caused your life to become unmanageable, that have caused my life to become unmanageable. And in my case, it was the use of alcohol and drugs that gained power over me and helped to make my life unmanageable. Yes. So what we're going to be asking you today, if you're not a drug addict or alcoholic, but you know what they say? They say we're all addicted to something. We are all addicted to something. So therefore, we all can use a 12 recovery principle program. Okay? So, but it's the first recovery principle that we have to do 100% because it sets the foundation in order for us to utilize and apply and implement the remaining 11 principles. Why? Because if I don't take that first step 100%, then that situation, that circumstance, that substance, that challenge can overpower you again and again and again, thereby making your life continuously unmanageable. Even though you may have periods of manageability, but eventually that situation, circumstance, substance overpowers you again and your life becomes unmanageable. Okay? So it says, number one recovery principle, you are not in this alone. We admit it. We were powerless over. And I have a blank line here, right? So you could put in whatever you feel as though you are powerless over that has contributed to your life being unmanageable, right? So I'm not alone, you're not alone. Admit it. And I had to underline the word admit it. Admit it means to confess to be true. Remember I told you to thy own self be true? There's no gray area. There's no straddling the fence. Either it's true or it's not. It's just that simple. So admit it means confess to be true. Or to be the case typically with reluctance. Many of us don't. They say we like the truth, or they say, you say tell me the truth, but can we deal with the truth? And then if we're not truthful, what is our reluctance to be truthful? And the 12 recovery principles help us to unravel that onion to find out that. But we admitted we were powerless over this COVID-19. It's happening all around the world. We are powerless over what has happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. We, as a nation, as a world, we are powerless over it. And it is and have made already our lives unmanageable. Once we admit that, it's reality. It's true. Variations here and there, but it's true. It's affecting the whole entire world in one form or another. And it is and will continue for a time to make our life unmanageable. I just used the COVID-19 pandemic as a fill-in for our powerlessness and how it is making our lives unmanageable. That's why if we accept that 100%, right? Because it's true. There's no reluctance. There's more than enough evidence, right? It's true. And we see the ripple effect that it's having and making individuals, families, communities, societies, the world unmanageable. Everybody is scrambling to do this, to do that, to get this, all that kind of stuff. But people in recovery, like myself, we admit it. It's true. It is, and have, and will continue to make life unmanageable for some people. But people in recovery use that serenity prayer. It says, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is where Dr. Scott T. Allison in Psychology Today emphasized that we can use the wisdom of these 12-step programs. And I'm sharing that wisdom with you. So that's why we have to admit that we are powerless over whatever. Whether you have a cancer, you have it, right? Whether you try to commit suicide, you tried it, right? It happened. You were raped. It happened, right? It's true. It happened. And as a result of those things happening, those situations that cost you, it's true. It did happen. And not and what, so what, now what, but it did happen. You acknowledged it. We admitted it. Because if you don't admit it, if you don't bring out what's internally festering in your spirit inside, then you're playing ping pong in your head. You're going cuckoo for Cocoa Pops because you don't want to admit the truth. But once you admit the truth, you can begin healing. Yes. Yes. So we admitted we were powerless over that situation, circumstance, or whatever, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay? Perfect example with me and my drug addiction and alcoholism and associated behavior. I stopped going to work. I was getting high at work. I neglected my children. I decreased in my hygiene. I started prostituting. I started stealing. Why? To support my habit that had power over me. That substance had power over me. Yes, in the beginning I made a choice. But after a while, it consumed me. It consumed me. But I'm thinking I had control over it. And they say the minute you try to control something, you're already out of control. Okay? And so I had to admit that this alcohol, these drugs, is making my life unmanageable. That's the first thing. That's why it's 100%. Now, we can get to why you chose to pick up that drink or that drug, why you are going through all these feelings and thoughts and actions based on what's going on to you. We're going to get into that. But first we have to admit that this situation is causing my life unmanageability. And so here are a few questions I want to give you. What are you powerless over? I ask again. The he-men, the women who think they superwoman, guess what? I ask you a question. What are you? Not what you think you powerless over. See, I'm not going around the bush. What are you powerless over? You need some examples? Can you control the weather? No. Can you control other people's driving? No. They may get stopped by the cops or whatever, but can you control that? Can you control the thoughts that come into your mind? You say, why did I think about that? Where did that come from? So the question is, what are you powerless over? What are you powerless over? Your children? your mate, your boss, what's going on in the world today? What are you powerless over? Are you willing to admit what you are powerless over? And I always use the analogy of going backwards. So let's take the second part of recovery principle number 1. It says that our lives had become unmanageable. What in your life is making your life unmanageable? What in your life, what are you doing that's making your life unmanageable? Once you identify that, then you can say why it's unmanageable, because obviously I'm powerless over it. And thereby it's making my life unmanageable. So if I admit that I'm powerless over, get the help that I need to regain some soundness of mind, not control. Because that's another question. So the question was, what are you powerless over? The second question I want you to ponder, to write about. Let me see what time it is. Okay. I got 15 more minutes. Question number 2. How and in what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? Let me ask you that again. How and in what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? First, admit, be a man, be a woman. Tell yourself the truth. What are you powerless over? If my 2 little grandchildren who are upstairs in my bed wake up now, can I control them to go back to sleep? Can I stop them from when they wake up? Grandma, grandma, that's the first thing you might hear because they're still upstairs. Am I powerless over them saying, grandma, grandma? Yes. If I try to force them to go back to sleep, if I try to force them to not say grandma, I'm driving myself cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. I done lost my serenity. I done became a different person. Now I'm exhibiting anger, frustration, impatience, intolerance. Wow. Good example, huh? Yeah. Just that. Mm-hmm. There's a trash truck outside. Can I go out there and tell them, be quiet, be quiet. I'm on live Facebook. That noise. Do I got power over that? No. What did I just do? I admitted that they were out there and I accepted, and I'm letting you know. So I don't have to get frustrated by, oh, let me shut the windows. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me go outside and tell them I'm not. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's bring it home. Am I powerless over what has happened in the world today? What's going on today? Billy, what's going on? Okay, you got something to say, Billy? Oh. I haven't toast to you. Okay, all right. Billy wants me to drink a cup of coffee. All right. It's my baby right here. Let's talk about what's going on today. Are you powerless over it? I am. I accept it. Yes. If I don't accept it, if I don't accept what's going on in this world today with this COVID-19 thing, right? I could very easily lose control, lose my mind, go back to drinking, go back to drugging, go back to prostituting, go back to acting out and all kinds of dysfunction, unhealthy behaviors. Why? Because I refuse to admit that I'm powerless over what's going on? So if I admit that I'm powerless over what's going on in the world, then my life won't become unmanageable in the midst of the storm. And better yet, do I have control over how other people respond to the same situation? Understandably so, people are losing their minds. People are hurting. People don't know where to go, what to do. People are fearful. They are afraid. And when you have children, those that you're responsible for, looking at you like, what you gonna do, Dad? What you gonna do, Mom? Yeah. But through these 12 recovery principles, y'all, there's hope. Through these 12 recovery principles, we can be set free from recovery, emerge empowered. Yes, we can. But I can't fault you if you don't have the information. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing my part. I'm only one person. I'm just doing my part. Because in the midst of all this, I can keep a smile. I can keep the faith. I can keep the hope. I can do what I'm able to do. I can still be present for these little babies upstairs. They don't know what's going on. When they wake up, they want to eat. They want to poo, pee. They want to play. I don't need to miss none of that because I'm so engrossed with what's going on around me. And you would have to use those similar examples to ask yourself, what are you powerless over? How and what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? That was question number 2. And question number 3 that I want you to ponder on is, do you think you can ever regain power over what you were powerless over? It's not a trick question. I have to watch how I say, because the other transparency that I have dentures. Normally I take them out, but I'm not going to take them out, but I have dentures. So sometimes my language or my words don't come out and I'm not able to articulate. But guess what? That's another example. Me being powerless over drugs and alcohol took my teeth. Yes. But recovery, utilizing the 12 recovery principles, allowed me to get some teeth back. So, I had to throw in a little humor there. You know what I mean? Because we take ourselves too seriously sometimes. And we forget to laugh. We forget to pause. So, I just like to interject some humor every once in a while. But getting back to that third question. Do you think you can regain power over what you were once powerless over? That's just like asking me, Edwina, do you think you can drink again? Do you think you can control your drinking again? Do you think that if you started prostituting, you can control that again? I know the answer. I know the answer for me. The answer for me is no. I can never regain power over drinking and drugging again. Never. And guess what? I don't want to. But these are the questions that I need you to ask. And so I'm not going to let what's going on in this world today with this COVID-19 pandemic take away what I have worked so hard for and contributed to these past 30 years. And more importantly, I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind. I'm sorry, I got to be transparent. I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind. And I'm going back out there and drink again. I refuse. I refuse to let what's going on in this world take me back to the streets. I refuse. So that means if I don't utilize these 12 recovery principles, I may tell you where to go. And that's a lot. That's going on a lot in the world. There's a lot of fights breaking out. There's a lot of rumbles and a lot of words and a lot of But through the 12 recovery principles, should I make that mistake, I know how to rectify it immediately. So that that power of drinking and drugging won't come back to the forefront of my mind, and I think I could. So I'll come back and I'll apologize to you. But I'm not going to tell God that. He's my hope. He is what's giving me this freedom. That's why I am able to face everything and recover. That's fear. That's another acronym. Face everything and recover. Face everything and rejoice. Or forget everything and run. There's a lot of fear going on today, y'all, with this COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of fear. But through the 12 recovery principles, we can learn how to gain wisdom from them, how to gain instructions from them, how to gain spirituality from them, how to gain strength from them. Yes. Because we want to face everything and recover. That's why I still go to my meetings every day after 30 years. Because we are given this day only, this day. And it's almost 7 o'clock in the morning, right? This day. Already, I'm full of joy. I'm full of hope. Why? Because what was inside, whether it's good or bad, I'm setting it free. I'm setting it free. So, just to recap, today was, we admitted we were powerless over whatever that, Billy, come on now. We were powerless over whatever in this particular situation, this COVID-19 pandemic, that our lives had become unmanageable. Because once we utilize these 12 recovery principles, it's not going to have power over us anymore. Because we're going to learn how to deal with it, accept it, change the things we can, but knowing the difference of what we need to accept and what we can change. What we can change with help. You hear me? With help. Okay? So, admit it means to confess to be true or to be the case typically with reluctance. That's what admitted means. And the 3 questions that I pose to you, and I'm going to leave with you, is what are you powerless over? How and in what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? And 3, do you think you can ever regain power over something you were once powerless over? Okay. So, tomorrow we are going to again do a quick overview of the presentation, and we're going to focus on recovery principle number 2, which states, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, they go that I and we, ourselves, could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. And sanity means, honey, soundness of mind. So once we admitted we were powerless over something and our lives had become unmanageable, we're going to discuss tomorrow what power out there is greater than us that can help restore us to soundness of mind. Okay? So, thank you. And I want to encourage you to do a watch party so that others in your group can hear about this free from recovery, emerge empowered, and hope help others prosper equally presentation so that we can get through this together if you choose to. God bless.